Welcome to the Big Success Show. Today, a local entrepreneur shows us how to change the world. Brought to you by FinancialFreedomTool.com.
Tips to be your best with the professor and Mary-Lynn for your big success.
Hi, I'm George Kruger, a.k.a. The Professor.
And I'm Mary-Lynn.
Today we are thrilled to introduce you to Derek Evans. Derek is the founder of Project 615, an apparel company on a mission to end poverty. Starting with nearly no money, he has built a profitable business which has given over $500,000 away to worthy causes and employs over 60 people recovering from homelessness and addiction.
He's with us today to talk about his wonderful new book, Made to Change the World, How Ordinary People Are Called to Do Extraordinary Work, the story of Project 615. Welcome to the Big Success Show, Derek.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to talk to you guys today.
It's fantastic to talk to you. Now, you actually grew up not too far from us. We're in Champaign, Illinois. You grew up in Indianapolis, so like just a couple hours away.
That's right. Just three Midwesterners talking.
There you go. We won't let our accents bleed through, though.
That's right.
We're the only people in the world with no accent.
Although I always say a Midwesterner is how a normal American should talk. But, you know, I live in the South now, and I can't understand half the people. So, you know, but yeah, I know it's funny.
Well, it's okay, Derek, because I can't understand myself. So, you know.
Well, let's get to talking about all of these amazing things that you've accomplished, Derek. And we'll start with the beginning. You got this promotion that you wanted in your profession. And a few months later, your boss let you go. Pick up the story from there.
And thank the good Lord, he did.
That's awesome.
I was fortunate to be let go. And, you know, I think that's what we all kind of need in our life. You know, we need a nice little, we need something to light a fire under us. And so that was kind of where my journey began. And I was fresh out of college, maybe a year or two, and just kind of searching for what I wanted to do for a living. I studied broadcast journalism. I realized soon into it, I did not want to do that for a living. And I really felt this, kind of more or less more of a spiritual calling to want to do something great in my life. And so, I set out on that journey and then realized, I wanted to move up professionally and, started working for a construction management company. And it was during the recession, and so that company actually went under, and I was the first to be let go. And so as soon as the boss handed me my small little severance check, I said, I think I'm moving to Nashville. And so 6 days later, I moved to Nashville, and that's kind of where the journey continues. I was unemployed for a handful of months and was just seeking different opportunities. Never really did think that I would start my own business in my entire life. You know, I didn't study business. My parents didn't know anything about business. None of my friends were business owners at the time. And so, yeah, it was all just kind of this crazy miracle that took place with a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears.
Now, Derek, I want to just make sure we understand something, because you said it is a blessing that you got laid off. But did you feel that way like immediately? I mean, it's like, hey, this is my permission slip to go do what I want to do. Or did you really have some angst in there?
It's a great question. I think looking back on it, I think I actually do remember being really relieved. And I think that's kind of the, oftentimes many of us are who don't have our own business, who are working for the man, so to speak. We are kind of really looking for somebody to push us off the ledge. And unfortunately, so I was really relieved, because I think there was definitely some sort of, longing to do that, to really maybe have my own business eventually, but not really knowing how to do that. So yeah, I think it was this sense of relief and get me out of this, prison cell is what I felt like I was in at my job, and so, yeah, I would answer that in saying, yes, I think I was relieved.
Well, George asked the deep question. My question is, what made you say Nashville? That's where I want to go.
Yeah, great question. So I had one friend from college that moved down there about a year before I moved. I knew one person. I'd visited him a few times. I always picture, again, going back to us being from the Midwest, I pictured Nashville, just this cowboy boots kind of town, but it really wasn't. I got down there and I visited, and there's a lot of young people. There's a lot of athletes. Aside from musicians, obviously the town's full of musicians. Every bartender and barista is a musician. And so, I realized that this city is actually a pretty great city, and we've coined it into a T-shirt phrase, but I've thought about this for several years, but it's the city of dreams. People come here to really follow dreams. If that is music, if that is entrepreneurship, if that is, being an athlete, whatever that is, this town is full of those people. So I was very inspired when I would visit and realize that there's a lot of opportunities here.
Well, and I will tell you, Derek, my singing is so bad that it's not a dream, it's a nightmare. So that would be, I would be the Nashville nightmare, to tell you the truth. So, but now, so we've got you to Nashville. Now here's the next question. T-shirt business. Where did that idea come from? You wanted to start a T-shirt. I mean, you were very specific about this. You wanted to start a T-shirt business.
Well, so it's 2008 when I moved here. It's the recession. Everybody's kind of going crazy. Nobody's really hiring. It's just a wild time in the economy. And so it was really hard to get a job. I couldn't really find a job, especially a job that I wanted. I went to go find a job, it didn't work out, or I'd get a job and they would let me go. And so it was really this path of 12 to 18 months of, being like, oh, shucks, what's going on in my life? And so, but, for me, it was one of those opportunities where I was able to truly kind of really, get to the bottom of my life at that time, up until that time in my life, and realize, man, I need something greater. I want to live for something greater. And I don't want to have to go work at this silly job or do this silly thing. I'm wired and called to make a difference in this world. So during that season of kind of being unemployed, I had a friend of mine from college. He would come visit me a lot, and we just he moved closer to Nashville. He was still on the Kentucky side, but we hung out a lot. And he was a graphic designer, and I was unemployed, and so he'd come down and we'd go hang out. And I said, man, what do you think about starting a business? And he's just like, man, that's a wonderful idea. And he was very encouraging with that, and so we just started talking about well, what can we do to combine forces? So he was a graphic designer. I did everything under the sun. We just kind of spit out the word T-shirts one day, and that's kind of how it was birthed. And so we're like, well, let's start a T-shirt company and sell cool T-shirts.
So it wasn't a whim, but it was just sort of an idea that appeared.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, we both kind of got real passionate about it, and, so that's kind of how it started.
How did you not talk yourself out of it? Because as I'm hearing you, you're having a hard time finding work. So, a lot of times our brains will tell us that there's something wrong with us because we can't find work. But I'm not satisfied with what there is. Why am I not satisfied with what there is? Oh, Here's this T-shirt idea. You're crazy. How do you keep your brain from, to stay positive?
Yeah, I think, wow, I was really lucky because it was such a terrible time in my own life and in the economy being so poor as it was. So I think to me that was the biggest blessing, because you don't have many other things to fall back on. And I think if you don't have anything to fall back on, you're a little bit more set up for success. And especially with my family as well. My folks, we're just a normal blue collar Midwestern family. My parents couldn't even help me out at the time. And so that just makes you a little hungrier. If you have limited resources, you're going to be very resourceful. And that's kind of how it was that way. I mean, this has to happen or I'm not going to be able to eat. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and then once you get going, you start telling people what you're doing. And then, now you really got to stick to your word. Because once you let the cat out of the bag, you gotta follow through. So, yeah, I think the biggest part of the story is really just being so desperate, being in such a broken place. For me to truly kind of find myself, and for me being a person of faith, seeing what God has lined up for me, and really just kind of feeling that calling of where God wanted me to go. And so, yeah, I think that's also kind of the lucky part in me as well. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of successful business owners in this world, and not all of them have had this somewhat of a spiritual calling to do something in their business. And that's kind of where we got lucky. We kind of felt like the man upstairs really said, "Hey, this is your mission. Go do it." And so, there's a little bit more responsibility in that as well. So,
Absolutely.
you can't just say, "You know what, I'm gonna just go work at Arby's for, third shift and call it a day." But no, you have a greater responsibility.
Coming up, hear how Derek found his calling on a trip to Skid Row in Los Angeles. Right after this message from our sponsor, financialfreedomtool.com. Plenty of money for life.
Do you stress over money? Who doesn't? Let the Financial Freedom Tool ease your mind by pinpointing opportunities to improve your financial picture. Take control so you feel empowered to move ahead with confidence. Learn more at financialfreedomtool.com.
We're talking with Derek Evans, founder and CEO of Project 615 and the author of the new book, Made to Change the World.
We say big success is inner peace that flows from three components. The first one is finding and fulfilling your calling. Now, Derek, you found your calling on a trip to Skid Row in Los Angeles. How did that trip change your life and your business?
Yeah, great question, because it fits where we are in the story. And, so my friend Matt and I, he's a friend from college. We met back in Indiana at a school called Anderson University. And so, he's in Kentucky, I'm in Nashville. He starts coming down on the weekends, again, we're watching football, going out for some wings or whatever, and we just start chewing on the business idea. Well, then my church was saying, "Hey, we're going to go to Los Angeles and, do a mission trip to feed the homeless and hang out with the homeless at this place called Skid Row, which is downtown Los Angeles. It has thousands of people who are recovering and suffering from homelessness." And so I told him I signed up for that. And he said, "Well, man, I'd like to go on that trip as well." And so even though he didn't even go to the church or live in the city, so we go on that trip, didn't think anything about it as far as the business goes. We just thought we were two buddies who were, going on this mission trip and being cool and flying to LA for the first time. And it was on that trip where, we hung out with hundreds of people on both sides of the homeless recovery, where some people were still in it. They were living on the streets. They were doing their thing, living terribly. And there's people who have been rescued from there, where they've been able to turn their lives around. And both of those things were very beautiful for us. We were young kids at the time in our early 20s, thinking, "Man, this is crazy. Like, how does this happen in our world?" And both of us kind of got the idea, like, "Hey, wait a second. What about that T-shirt company? Is there a way to connect that while also helping people?" And so it was on that trip in LA that we said, "Hey, we want to be a part of something like this forever as entrepreneurs. How can we continue to do good in the world as entrepreneurs, as business owners?" So we got back to Nashville and said, "Hey, we're going to still launch this T-shirt company and now add this mission component of giving profits away and partnering with different nonprofits around Nashville, and then also hiring people who are recovering from homelessness and addiction."
And so how difficult was that to get going? Because this is a great idea and a great concept, and now you got to do the dirty work. What's, for somebody who's listening, who's like, "Wow, I want to do something like that." How do you get going?
Well, I would say for the person that's listening, I mean, I'm saying all this in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But, it takes 5 years. I mean, it really does. I mean, I always tell people, if you're not going to spend 5 years on this business idea, don't spend 5 minutes on it, because that's literally how long it will take. And, there's it's a roller coaster, as we all know. And so, yeah, we got back to Nashville, and, we just started. If we made 50 cents, we would put a quarter in the bank and, reinvest that and maybe pay ourselves a little bit. I was living off unemployment still, which was kind of wild. And my friend Matt, my business partner now, and he was working the day shift as a graphic designer, so he was moonlighting with us. So yeah, I mean, it just takes a lot of dedication. And we were fortunate to both be single, not have much responsibility in life. So, we could work the 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week and get stuff done. So yeah, that's kind of how we did it. I mean, we didn't have any investors. We didn't get any debt. Looking back on it, it's pretty crazy to think how we even survived, you know,
So did you
but, yeah.
just to try to get into this just a little bit more, because I think this is always the question in people's minds. Okay, where did the money come from to get started? So dad, no investors. Were you guys you didn't have printing equipment? You were printing the shirts themselves. I assume you were going to another vendor, and you were really focusing on the sales side. Is that accurate, or where'd you get the money?
Yeah. So how we kind of started it is, we obviously had the long-term vision of launching our own brand.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, we were doing that, but in the meantime, yeah, we were using other vendors. We were outsourcing all of that. In the meantime, we would go make shirts for other people. So different churches, schools, bands, the music scene is full of people that need cool merch.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a lot of graphic design work. So, we kind of acted as a design firm in a place where you could print your shirts if you wanted to, even though, because we didn't really have a brand yet, especially early on. People started to finally hear about us, a couple years in, but there's certainly no brand. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just, you have to get creative. You said, what are some things that we can do to get income coming in? Well, let's do graphic design work for musicians. And we got lucky to land a few accounts with some major musicians at the time. And, that was really good money that we were able to keep and reinvest into the business. And so, yeah, I think, just being, using all the tools and resources that you had to really, make money. And so, you got to understand that you got to do silly things that you really didn't want to do. We launched a side business that sold to youth softball tournaments. And so we were on the road nearly every other weekend for a few years selling T-shirts to, 14-year-olds and younger at softball tournaments. But we didn't want to do it. We sacrificed a lot of our social life.
Yep.
But that's kind of part of, a new business. You do have to certainly sacrifice a lot of your own time.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got this great book that talks all about this story. $500,000. You've given over $500,000 away to worthy causes. With all the good that you've done, is there something in particular that stands out that makes you go like, that's why I'm doing this?
Yeah. I mean, I could go down the list, but I think one thing that sticks out is this month we've been celebrating our 9-year anniversary in business. And last year, every year we try to celebrate it. It's a way for us to kind of, go to the very beginning, tell our story, re-engage with our customers, tell everybody who we are, where we're from, why we're even in business. So every year, July and August, we kind of do that. And so last year, as part of our 8-year anniversary, our team came together and said that we wanted to build an orphanage in a third world country. And so that took several weeks to plan out, of course. But for our 8-year anniversary, we said, hey, let's do it. So we found a partner. They said, hey, we can do it in Uganda for only $25,000. That'll get a house that houses about 18 boys. And you guys can do it. So we're like, okay, we have to raise $25,000. That means a lot of T-shirts.
That's right.
And we launched it. It was so wonderful. The whole campaign, it was certainly scary because that was kind of the first one that we did that had a number on the end of it that we needed to go to the finish line with. And so the last day, I kid you not, we went over $25,000. And so it was such a wonderful thing. We were super excited, and we were able to transfer the money quickly to the nonprofit that went directly to this orphanage in Uganda. And so 18 of these boys they were homeless. They were living in bushes in their local villages, literally with nowhere to go. Little boys from ages, as young as 4 to 16. And so we were able to get that house built, and it's still thriving right now. And we actually just updated our followers on our social media about that the other day. So So yeah, that was kind of one of the top stories that we've had. And that certainly is just what we do. It's part of our DNA that we want to start a business that help people.
Well, big success is helping good people have more money to do more good. And Derek, you're a living example of it. We thank you so much for your time. For our audience, this book, Made to Change the World, How Ordinary People Are Called to Do Extraordinary Work, the story of Project 615. We highly recommend it to you. Where can they get the book, Derek?
MadeToChangeTheWorld.org, and it's available in most bookstores.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. We could talk to you forever. And maybe we will someday.
Yeah. Thanks for the inspiration.
Thank you all for the interview. Appreciate it.
And we thank you for listening today.
Until next time,
Here's to your big success.
Tips to be your best with the Professor and Mary-Lynn for your big success.
Find big success at biggsuccess.com.